Hello, 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 hello. Welcome, 33 Media Studio Productions Pilot Podcast. This is your host, Luke Rakowski. I'm pretty excited about starting to do this. I've never done a podcast before. I've done some public speaking, a little bit of like Facebook Live stuff and along those lines, but to actually have a microphone in front of me here and be able to talk to you and share my opinions and see how it goes, I'm pretty excited to do this. So, we have a pretty big pilot episode up here. We're going to talk about a few things. We got three major things that I want to discuss today, and they are going to be in no specific order. Well, maybe they are in a specific order. Number one, we're going to talk about rain, and we're going to talk about the big, um, I don't want controversy is maybe the word you want to call it. I wouldn't call it a controversy. I would call it a discussion that between tracks and track promoters and racers, and when you open and how the weather affects that. And we're going to dive into that topic a little bit because there's discussions that I've been having with some of the people in my racing family here, specifically, well, not all specifically, but, a lot of go-kart racers. Um, there's a school of thought you don't open till later in the season and because you avoid the rainouts. But there's also the school of thought where, hey, man, weather's starting to get nice, let's race. So we're going to dive into that a little bit. Number two is we're going to talk about Fonda Speedway. Um, they did the new surface. They've had two events, and now they're shut down for 2 weeks because of the service. So I want to talk about that a little bit from a racer's perspective, a fan perspective, and then as one who has my own track. I have a track in the backyard here, for those that don't know, that we host go-kart events on from a track prep standpoint, and kind of some opinions on that. Number three, we're just going to touch on basically if your tire keeps falling off the rim, it's probably not the rims. So we have a pretty action-packed pilot episode coming up. So without further ado, let's get into it. All right, so let's talk about rain. Let's talk about rain. So we are in May right now. It is actually May 12th, 2024. And there is a school of thought. You come around April, anytime in the off season. April's when racing can start kicking off. At least up here. I'm in the Northeast. I'm in New York, and the big car tracks start running in April, and there's some go kart tracks that try to start in April. And there's a big school of thought. Well, maybe not school of thought. But there's an opinion. There's a big. Let's use opinion. Let's use the word opinion. There's a big opinion out there based on the weather and what people view as a weather trend that you shouldn't open until May. And maybe some people are like, well, just don't open until June and just run later in the season. Now, I will say this. I am a pretty big advocate, and I would like the whole let's run later, right? Because you start getting into September and October. If you have a track and you can run during the day, going into October and even into November, you can have some really nice days for racing. I personally don't understand why more tracks up here, specifically kart tracks, don't do that. We get through September and it's like, well, that's enough of that. Um, I think October, I think if you had the opportunity to run October, maybe into November, do something around Thanksgiving, like we started this past year. We did the house, we did the gobbler, and it worked out pretty well. And we actually had snow flurries. It was a little chilly, but the weather was okay. You just got to keep an eye on the weather. But anyway, so back to the original point about the rain and when you should open. So coming from a track promoter's perspective, because I have a little bit of experience in that. Um, and after speaking to some promoters, and I have some quotes from one specifically, um, you really need to open as soon as you can. You need to chance it. You need to you need to start making money as a track because here let's talk about that too. It's okay for tracks to make money. It's okay for tracks to make a profit. It's not evil. All right. If the tracks don't make a profit, the tracks don't stay open. Right. And without tracks open, you don't have anywhere to race. So a lot of these guys have bills they have to pay throughout the whole year, right? So say you open in April, May, June, July, August, September, and you run through September. That's 6 months. You have 6 months out of the course of a year, half the year essentially, to make your bills for a whole year, plus pay everyone during those 6 months. So you have to run as often as you can. If you can open early, open early. Um, a, a business that's not open is losing money. One of the quotes I have from one of the track promoters I spoke to, unless you have a sweet deal, unless you own your own facility, um, most tracks require rent or some sort of lease or mortgage fee year round. So you have a 12-month expense just right there to lease the facility, lease the property, that you have 6 months to make while you're paying. So you have to pay during that 6 months. You have to bank the rest of the 6 months during the racing season. And if you have your facility bought and paid for, then you're good. So you can maybe start in May, right? You can try to get open in May. Um, there is some luck required to get a race in early, but you can have a successful opener. It can make up for winter losses because remember, if you're a lease promoter, you're leasing again, you're paying throughout the entire year. And this is the thing I think a lot of racers, unless they've been behind the scenes, they've been behind the um, on the other side of the fence, they don't understand this. All right, and it's it's important that you understand that track owners, track promoters, they have bills to pay behind the scenes, right? During the year, all throughout the year. You have to make that payment every month in order for the opportunity to put races on. Okay, so if a track wants to open earlier rather than later, in the chance to run and start making money so the track can be profitable and keep running next season, I don't see why they shouldn't. It's up to us as the racers and you guys as the racers to support those tracks instead of complaining that it might rain, instead of complaining that this, that, and the other thing. Find instead of finding reasons why you can't go to the race, find every reason why you can go to the race and support these tracks that want to open early. They're taking this chance to open to be able to provide a facility for us as racers and you as racers to race on. Um, and then that brings me to another thing, cancellation. All right, we all aren't a fan of tracks canceling, but sometimes it's necessary. And the thing is that this is a year thing. Like it's not regulated to 1 month. Weather up here is unpredictable. You have rainy spring, maybe June or July, right? June may possibly where it's nice, but then you get into thunder. Then the summer comes, then the humidity comes, then you're running into thunderstorms. And there's always a chance the inclement weather is going to postpone or cancel a racing event. It's not just regulated to April or May or April because we're talking about when tracks are opening. It's not just regulated to that. So for people to make this assumption and this claim that you shouldn't open until May because April, that's not the case. And I'm also going to actually, before I have some interesting data and something I looked up on weather patterns. I'm going to get to after this, but let's continue on this line. So I asked the promoter that I was talking to, I'm not going to name names, not going to tell you who it is, but I asked him, I said, another question I think that I might know the answer to, is it better for you to cancel before a race or try to race and end up canceling midway through an event or something like that? And I said, probably better for you to cancel before the event because as soon as you open the gates, the bills start flowing, right? Bills start, as soon as you turn that lock, money starts needing to be going out, whether it's insurance, whether you're paying staff, etc. And he came to me and his response was financially, if there's a 40% chance of rain, cancel early. 40% is the number that drops my cart count to break even or lose money. Even if I race and it doesn't rain, it's not going to be a financial success. At 50%, there's a 100% chance of losing money. It doesn't matter if it's a 50% chance of a passing sprinkle. This is the final part, is he said, people stay home. See, that's the problem. Right there, that's the problem. All right. I am a big proponent of you get the show in. You have a race. If there's a chance of rain, you prep the track for a chance of rain, you get the show in. Right. You have contingencies in place to plan for rain, to plan for when it's wet, to plan for when the inevitable shower comes to get the track back. You plan for this, right? But it doesn't make a hill of beans of difference if the people stay home. All right. Now, as a racer, if you're racing, you want to race. I would hope that you want to race. But this is the biggest issue is that last sentence is people stay home, right? And for now, I think you have a lot of people who want, and this is some promoters too. I think there's some promoters in the area that subscribe to this. If the conditions aren't perfect, I don't want to race. If the weather isn't sunny and whether it's, I know for 100% chance the race is going to go on, I don't want to race. I don't want to open my gates. Okay. Now, this is the promoter I spoke to. That's his opinion. That's how he operates. And he's successful. So I'm not going to tell him that his approach is wrong. All right. For me personally, in my area, if there's a 50% chance of rain, 40 to 50% chance of rain where I am pretty much means next to nothing for rain. All right. I'm going to race. I'm going to open the gates. I'm going to tell everyone we're going to race and we're going to deal with the rain. But the racers have to go out. Okay, the racers have to come out and support the track. And on the flip side of that, the track has to do everything in its power to get this show off to reward the racers that came out to support this day in inclement weather. All right, it's a twofold, but at the end of the day, the you guys who race have to go out. You can't sit here all winter and say you want to race. You can't sit here all winter and say, you know, I'm ready to race and get my stuff ready all the time and effort you put in. And then on the flip side, complain when a track cancels because there's inclement weather or a chance of inclement weather and say, oh, I don't know why they canceled when you don't go out. You don't go out to the track. All right. A promoter, track owner, track promoter, the body of people who run a track need to do what's best financially for them so that they can continue to operate. So they can cover their expenses during the course of a season, bank money to cover the expenses that come up in the off season that when they're not running races. Because if that doesn't happen, guys, there's no racing. Okay? And if a track goes, well, you know what? At 50% chance of rain, I have to cancel because no one's going to come out. That's on the racers. That's on you guys. If you want to race, go race. So, data. I looked up some interesting stuff. I want to find out weather patterns, and this might surprise you. And you can find these. You go to Weather Atlas. All right. I looked up in 3 areas based around me. I looked up for Fonda, New York. I looked up for Vernon, New York, where Utica Rome is, Speedway, and I looked up Cobleskill, New York, which is right near where my home go-kart track of Dodge City Speedway is, and where I've spent the better part of a lot of time the past couple of years with my kids racing and various other reasons, watching, observing, helping, promoting, all that stuff. So this might surprise you. So let's go for Fonda. Okay, Fonda Speedway. Great track champions, baby. It's our favorite dirt track to go watch. The kids love it. That's where we go. In April, the average rainfall days in April for Fonda was 16.3 days. The average total rainfall per the month was 3.27 inches. Okay. Go to May. Check this out. The average rainfall for the day was 17.2 with an average fall per month of 3.46. So it's more, not a lot more, about an extra day of rain and about another 2/10 of an inch overall for the month. It's still more. Moving on, Vernon, New York. Okay, and then we go to June. Let's add June. Hold on. Fonda in June. June is where it drops off. Average rainfall days, total days, 15.9 with 3.19 inches of total rainfall for the month for Fonda. Okay, keep moving on. Vernon, New York, where Utica Rome is. For April, 16.6 days with 3.11 inches of rainfall. May, 16.8 days, 3.03 inches of rainfall. June, 17.3 days with 2.95 inches of rainfall. Cobleskill, right around where Dodge City is in my neck of the woods. For April, 16.2 days of rainfall with 2.99 inches of average rainfall for the month. For May, 18.5 days average with 3.27 average for the month inches of rain. June, 17.8 days with 3.23 inches for the course of the month. There is no difference between April, May, and June. That Weather Atlas. Go look it up. Check for yourself. Weather Atlas. There's no difference, guys. All right, so this mindset, so the mindset about April, May, and June, if anything, June is when you'd want to open if you're starting to get perfect weather. But up here in Cobleskill, it rains more in June than it does in April for the average. Weather Atlas, go check it out. So this mindset that we can't open early, that this isn't going to work, that you're really, oh man, you can't have races in April, you can't have races in April, is false because of rain. We need to stop thinking about it this way and start thinking about that we want to race. That's the end, because the averages for April and May are roughly the same, if not a little more in May, and you'll start to see a drop off in June just for those 3 months. So guys, racers, people, please, let us stop vilifying tracks who want to open early. Let's stop vilifying tracks making money, because again, if a track doesn't make money, a track ceases to exist, and then you have nowhere to race. And instead of looking for reasons why we can't go out and race, let's look for reasons why we can race. Let's put the effort in. So the tracks will put the effort in. And guess what? Everyone's going to benefit, and more tracks will be open, and you will have more time to race. So that is an opinion I have about rain and racing. Let's move on. Let's talk about Fonda Speedway. So this is a hot button topic lately up here with the track surface. All right, this is a very big deal. They tried to run a couple of events. One event got rained out before the features. The next event, the track was pretty bad. Although I heard from a crew member on a modified team that the last event they ran, when they got the full show and they didn't get rained out, the track was actually better than the previous week when they actually rained out before features. But they redid the surface. They resurfaced it with clay last fall. Now, I'm not a big car track guy, prep guy, right? I do have experience prepping my little track here at the house. I have pretty good clay, and it works. And I have a lot of I have any opinion based on track prep is just from my obsessive research into it and my viewpoint based upon my trial and error here at my house. So, the track is soft. All right, it's soft. So you have a new surface, right? Which I think maybe, and just logically this makes sense, and maybe it makes sense from a people who know more than I do or better than I do, because I don't claim to know everything. What they probably should have done, in my opinion, is put the clay down last fall when they did, or before. I don't remember exactly when. I just know it was last fall. Work the rocks out then, because then they would have had more time. That everything was the rocks. There's rocks, there's rocks, there's rocks. Well, they would have had more time, and then it really should have been flattened, tamped, rolled, whatever you want to call it. Because the problem you have with a new surface, and I was out working on the track here at the house myself, and it's, I put my track to bed, air quotes, last fall. Pretty much the groove was packed. I worked out outside the groove. I had a York rake. A wonderful friend of mine let me borrow his tractor with a York rake. I scraped it and I left. I put it to bed last winter. I wanted to settle. I wanted it to to breathe, to settle, and just do what it does, and we'll figure it out in the spring. So, that being said, like, I didn't put 6 inches of fluff on top of mine. It's still soft out there, right? So you add it was we the rain, because we get rain in the spring. It does rain in the spring. You add the rain, you add a new surface on top that they resurfaced the new clay on top at Fonda. It guys, ladies and gentlemen, it is going to rut up. It's almost a guarantee. Because it's soft, because the base hasn't been packed. There's the base hasn't been worked in so that they can you have that base underneath the top layer that always peels off or blows off or brushes off, however you want to call it, during the course of a race night. The base isn't packed, and it's unfortunate because I know with um, any track promoter, any person who runs a track who puts on events like they do at Fonda with Brett Deo, he doesn't want to give you this surface. This is not the intent. The intent is not to tick people off. The intent is not to create a quote unquote motocross track out there. The intent is to put on a great event for the racers and for the fans so people keep showing up at the track. It's absurd and it's asinine to think that this is something that people want. That a guy who puts on runs tracks, runs an event, runs a series of the short track super series, if this is something that he wants to do, right? I think that, they had to shut down. They shut down this week. High Limit was going to be here next week, and they canceled that event because they're trying to get time to get the track back. All right. And do you think he really wants to do that? No. Do you think he really wants to keep shelling out money to pay people to fix this? No. Do I also think that a lot of things were learned? Absolutely. Without a shadow of a doubt, things are learned, mistakes were made, a series of unfortunate events, as I read on social media once, happened, and here we are. So we have two choices as fans, as racers. We can sit here and we can yell about it, and we can flap our gums, and we can keyboard warrior all about it as we want to, but that's not going to get anyone anywhere. What good does that do to sit here and run our mouths and run and pound our keyboards like angry people in a basement about the situation? Doesn't do any good. Doesn't do any good for anybody. The best thing we can do is, you may be ticked off about it. You can be upset about it. All right. People pulled off the track last week because they didn't want to take a chance of wrecking their stuff. And that is fine. I understand that. I'm totally nothing wrong with that. All right. Some people chose to go out and race, and that's their prerogative. And that's fine too. You had two decisions: stay out and run the track, which everybody had to run the same track, people. Everyone has to run the same track. You have the same ruts, you have the same holes. The faster guys found a way to deal with the adversity. Or you pulled off, loaded up your stuff, said we'll get them next time. And none of those decisions are wrong. They are both right, and they're based on everyone's personal circumstance. Okay? But it's just silly to sit here and think that this is something that was, you know, intentional or on purpose or desired or no, it's none of those things. It's unfortunate is what it is. And if you really think about it, it's kind of sad. You don't want to see this happen. But I, for one, the day they reopen again, will be in the stands with my kids, because you know what? It's my favorite place to go. It's my daughter's and my son's favorite place to go watch a race. It's our home track. It's our home away from home when we're watching, and it's a fantastic atmosphere. We love going, and we will be there because I prefer to support tracks. I prefer to support um, racers, especially in big car. I know I'm friends with quite a few people. I understand the magnitude of the financial and time expense it takes to maintain, run these cars, and to do this as a hobby. If you don't do it for a living, and even it's still expensive if you do it for a living. It doesn't matter. You're on the track, you have a car on the track. It's time consuming. It's financially consuming, and we want to support those guys. Okay, we want to see dirt track racing thrive up here, and that's our goal. So I just It's not helpful, people, to continue to drive it in the ground and complain about it. All right. Um, it's not. So now, that being said, if there's not a change and there's progressive growth and there's progressive trending upward, then, we might have a conversation about that. Okay. But we got to wait and see. We brought in Cochran, right, to help out, to work the track. Guy's really good at what he does. Let's wait and see. Let's wait and see what it looks like, see what it turns out like. Let's go support the track. All right. Let's go support the track champions. Let's have at it. So, but if there's no change, if there's um no no progression, which I don't see why there wouldn't, then we'll have another conversation. Then we'll be able to talk about something else. Okay, because there are tracks out there that it doesn't happen. Okay, whether it's lack of knowledge, whether it's lack of want to, whether it's any just a not caring or whatever it is. Um, it does happen from go-karts to big cars. There are tracks out there. There are people running tracks out there who have no business running tracks, who have no idea what they're doing, and will continually put out a poor product for the racers to race on, and then complain when no one shows up. So let's wait and see what happens with Fonda Speedway, and let's see how this plays out, and then we'll have another conversation. All right, let's touch on this a little bit. So in the this is pretty funny. I don't have a um a great knowledge base on this. I just know from various conversations I've had with go-kart racing friends of mine, with the Burris tire issue, with stuff coming off with the beads coming off the rims, right? And there's pictures out there, there's accounts out there. This is a problem. This is a big problem. Um, so I will say this, okay? There is at least people up here, and I don't know, maybe across the country, about blaming the rims. There's a certain brand of rim. It's a rim issue. No, it's a tire issue. If you have multiple tires and tires being sent back from your distributors because they're bad, it's your tire issue. That's the end of the end of That's the name of the game. End of the story. You can't blame rims because your tires don't stay on the rims. That's a you problem. That's a manufacturer problem. That's a tire issue, and they need to make them right. They need to make it right. So it just astounds me that people want to blame everything but the source of the problem. So, but that's all I'm going to say about that. So good luck if you're running Burris tires, and hopefully they stay on the rims for you. So anyway, that has been the pilot episode number 1. This is the first one I ever done, or did, as the case may be, for 33 Media Studio Production. So this is unedited, unscripted, no cuts, nothing. This is my opinion. This is what I think. This is me talking for roughly half an hour to give you guys something to talk about. And if you would like anything for me to talk about on the show, let me know. You can comment below, or if you know me personally, just shoot me an email. So, or just reach out to me, text me. That being said, I would like to have people on the podcast. So I actually have some people lined up to talk about some things. So if you have a topic tip, or you want to come talk about on the podcast about anything going on with your racing or your racing program, listen, feel free. Let me know. We'll make it happen. With that being said, I hope you guys have a great day, night, whenever you're listening to this. If you're racing soon, good luck. Stay safe. God bless.